I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country-destroying embargo. I can embargo.
The countdown is on. In the last few days, President Trump issued a blunt ultimatum to the Islamic Republic, roughly 10 days to reach a nuclear deal, or face consequences described as really bad things. A senior advisor has put the odds of a strike within weeks at 90% if diplomacy fails. But here is the question that keeps strategists up at night. If the order is given, how exactly does the United States military crack the hardest nut in the Middle East? And despite the overwhelming firepower assembling off its coast, how does Iran plan to not only repel that attack, but ensure its nuclear scientists, its missile cities, and its regime survive? To understand the strike, you first have to understand the sheer mass of hardware the U.S. has packed into the region. This isn't a show of force, it's a show of overwhelming force. Right now, the U.S. Navy has approximately one-third of its entire deployed fleet concentrated within striking distance of Iran. We are talking about two carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln already in the Arabian Sea and the USS Gerald R. Ford, the Navy's most advanced warship, transiting the Atlantic to join it. They are escorted by no fewer than 15 destroyers, Arleigh Burke-class vessels packed with Aegis combat systems. Open-source intelligence analysts estimate that this flotilla alone can unleash over 600 Tomahawk land attack missiles in a single opening salvo. 600. That's just the Navy. The Air Force component is equally terrifying. The U.S. has pre-positioned assets at bases in Qatar like Al Udeid and in Jordan. But the real hammer? That's the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. These are the only aircraft capable of carrying the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the bunker buster. These bombs weigh over 30,000 pounds and are designed to penetrate up to 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. This force is not assembled to fight a proxy militia. This is assembled to surgically dismantle a nation's strategic capability. If the green light is given, the Joint Chiefs of Staff will execute a target package that has been wargamed for decades. It won't be random. It will be a synchronized, multi-layered attack designed to achieve two things: decapitate the nuclear program and blind the regime's ability to retaliate. First, the nuclear sites. The primary targets will be the deep underground facilities at Fordo and Natanz. However, the most immediate target might be Isfahan. Recent satellite imagery from February 8th confirmed that Iran has completely buried all entrances to the tunnel complex there with thick layers of soil. They are trying to force the U.S. to either use the limited stock of bunker busters or fail. The U.S. will hit these with B-2s. Second, the missile cities. The IRGC has unveiled massive underground bases, like the one housing the new Khorramshahr-4 missile. This missile is a nightmare for planners. It has a range of 2,000 kilometers, a 1,500 kilograms warhead, and it maneuvers at Mach 16 outside the atmosphere. The U.S. will try to collapse the entrances to these underground cities to trap the missiles inside. Third, the air defense network. Before the heavy bombers roll in, the first waves will be electronic warfare and stealth aircraft like F-35s, tasked with destroying Iranian radar sites and SAM batteries. They need to punch a hole in the dome to let the Tomahawks and bombers through. Now this is where the analysis gets interesting. Iran knows it cannot beat the U.S. Air Force in a dogfight, so they aren't going to try. Their doctrine is based on anti-access area denial, making the cost of the operation so painful that the U.S. calls it off. How do they repel the attack? They don't shoot down the B-2s over Tehran. Instead, they try to sink the carriers that launched them. Iran has integrated 1,000 new drones into its army specifically for strike and electronic warfare. The plan is saturation. While the U.S. is focused on nuclear sites, Iran will launch a swarm attack from its coastline. Think dozens of fast attack boats and low-flying drones aimed at the destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Navy has layered defenses, SM-2 missiles, CRAM, and even new directed energy lasers to fry drone electronics. But the challenge is coordination. If Iran launches ballistic missiles from its mobile launchers simultaneously with drone swarms, they create a deconfliction nightmare for U.S. gunners. The goal isn't necessarily to sink the ship. The goal is to force the U.S. to expend its multi-million-dollar interceptors faster than they can be reloaded. Furthermore, to protect the nuclear scientists and command centers, Iran is physically dispersing and burying them. They covered the Isfahan tunnels with dirt specifically to absorb the shock of bunker busters and to prevent special forces from raiding the site. But the wild card, the factor that truly complicates the Pentagon's math, is the presence of Russia and China. This is no longer just a bilateral dispute. Just last week, Russia, China, and Iran deployed naval vessels for the Maritime Security Belt 2026 exercises right there in the Strait of Hormuz. They are practicing coordinated maneuvers to protect trade routes, but the message is clear: we are here. How will Moscow and Beijing help Tehran repel an attack? It will likely happen in 3 distinct phases. Phase 1: intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Russia has advanced electronic warfare capabilities and jamming systems. They won't fly Russian jets with Russian stars on them, but they can provide real-time targeting data to Iranian shore batteries from their ships. They can help Iran see what the US carriers are doing. Phase 2: diplomatic cover and material resupply. In the UN Security Council, Russia and China will block any further condemnation of Iran. More importantly, if the US strikes, a supply air bridge could open. We could see Russian cargo planes landing in Tehran with spare parts for air defenses. Phase 3: the hypersonic variable. There is a concerning suggestion that China may have provided Iran with technology related to the Dongfeng 17 hypersonic missile. If Iran has access to hypersonic glide vehicles, it changes everything. The US Navy's Aegis system is designed to track ballistic arcs. Hypersonic weapons maneuver. If Iran can put a Chinese-designed hypersonic warhead on an Iranian missile, the US carriers may have to retreat 500 miles from the Iranian coast just to be safe. China arms Iran to bleed American focus, keeping the US pinned in the Middle East, while China operates freely in the Pacific. Finally, we have to talk about the endgame. Can the regime survive the opening salvo? The military assets, the missiles, the drones, some will survive. The IRGC has spent years building hardened facilities. But a strike isn't just about hardware, it's about shock. The US has multiple scripts, according to Russian media analysis. One involves simply destroying nuclear facilities. Another, more sinister possibility involves strikes so severe that they trigger a collapse of public services, fuel shortages, bread lines, hoping that the Iranian people who have protested before rise up against the government. Iran's leadership is preparing for this. The foreign minister has issued a pre-action warning, stating that any attack will be met with a coercive response. They believe that survival depends on making the retaliation swift and brutal against US bases in Bahrain and Qatar. But the wild card is the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran lays mines and disrupts the 20% of the world's oil that flows through there, they invite economic ruin upon themselves, but they also drag the entire global economy into the crisis. That is their ultimate leverage. If the choice is between regime survival and global recession, they will tank the economy to save the regime. Right now, we are in a strange purgatory. The bombs are loaded on the carriers. The missiles are in their underground rails. Russia and China are practicing war in the Hormuz, but the diplomats are still talking in Oman. The next 10 days will decide whether we see the largest aerial campaign in the Middle East since the Iraq War, or a tense, fragile truce. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay informed.